In the shadow of Germany's industrial heartland, where the hum of assembly lines has defined generations of economic might, a somber milestone has been reached. On December 16, 2025, the last vehicle rolled off the production line at Volkswagen's Transparent Factory in Dresden, marking the first time in the company's 88-year history that it has ceased vehicle manufacturing at a German plant. This closure, while not the end of Volkswagen as a whole, signals profound challenges for one of the world's largest automakers and the broader German economy. Founded in 1937 amid the turbulent prelude to World War II, Volkswagen has weathered wars, economic crises, and technological revolutions, emerging as a symbol of German engineering prowess. Yet now, amid rising costs, shifting market demands, and geopolitical pressures, the company has chosen to repurpose the Dresden facility into a research hub, laying off workers and redirecting resources in a bid for survival. This is the story of how Volkswagen's shutdown in Germany after 88 years reflects not just corporate strategy, but the unraveling of an industrial model that once seemed unassailable. It is a tale of adaptation in the face of electric vehicle transitions, energy crises, and global competition, a reckoning that could foreshadow broader declines in Europe's manufacturing powerhouse. To fully grasp this moment, we must journey back to Volkswagen's origins, exploring the forces that built it into a giant and the pressures now forcing its contraction. Let us begin with the foundations, assuming no prior knowledge of Volkswagen's history or the complexities of the automotive industry. An automaker is a company that designs, manufactures, and sells vehicles, from passenger cars to commercial trucks. Volkswagen, often abbreviated as VW, is one of the largest such companies globally, producing over 9 million vehicles annually at its peak. It was established in 1937 by the German Labor Front, a Nazi-era organization with the explicit goal of creating an affordable people's car, the Volkswagen, which means people's car in German. The original Beetle, designed by Ferdinand Porsche, became an icon of post-war recovery, symbolizing accessibility and reliability. The company was privatized in the 1960s, with the German government retaining a significant stake through the state of Lower Saxony, which holds about 20% of voting rights today. This structure gives the government veto power over major decisions, blending private enterprise with public influence. The automotive industry operates on massive scale. It involves supply chains spanning continents, sourcing materials like steel, batteries, and semiconductors, assembly lines where robots and workers build vehicles, and distribution networks selling to global markets. Key concepts include economies of scale, the idea that producing more units lowers per-unit costs, and just-in-time manufacturing, where parts arrive exactly when needed to minimize inventory. Volkswagen expanded aggressively post-war, acquiring brands like Audi, Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini, forming the Volkswagen Group. By the 2010s, it was the world's largest automaker by sales, employing over 670,000 people worldwide, with Germany as its core, home to 295,000 workers and iconic plants in Wolfsburg, Emden, and Zwickau. Germany's economy is heavily reliant on manufacturing, particularly autos, which account for about 5% of GDP and employ millions directly and indirectly. The sector benefits from the mittelstand, medium-sized suppliers providing specialized parts and strong unions negotiating wages and conditions. Political concepts like industrial policy, government support through subsidies, tax breaks, or regulations have bolstered it. However, challenges loom. The shift to electric vehicles, EVs, requiring batteries and software over traditional engines, rising energy costs from the Russia-Ukraine war, and competition from China where low-cost EVs flood markets. The step-by-step breakdown of events leading to the Dresden closure reveals a confluence of pressures building over years. The Transparent Factory, opened in 2001, was unique. A glass-walled facility in Dresden designed as a showcase, producing luxury models like the Phaeton and later the e-Golf. It employed about 500 people, focusing on high-end assembly with public tour, embodying VW's blend of innovation and heritage. But by the 2010s, profitability waned. The 2015 Dieselgate scandal, VW admitting to cheating emissions tests, cost $30 billion in fines and recalls, damaging reputation and finances. It accelerated the pivot to EVs under the Transform 2025 Plus plan, investing €73 billion in electrification. The pandemic in 2020 disrupted supply chains, causing chip shortages that halted production. Energy prices spiked in 2022 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with Germany phasing out nuclear power and Russian gas, leading to €40 billion in subsidies for industry. VW's costs rose 20%. Competition intensified. Tesla and Chinese firms like BYD undercut prices, capturing market share. VW's sales in China, its largest market, fell 10% in 2024 amid EV transition delays. By 2025, internal reviews flagged inefficiencies. In March, CEO Oliver Blume announced €10 billion in cost cuts, including 35,000 job reductions globally. Dresden, producing only 1,000 vehicles annually, was deemed unviable. In September, consultations with unions began under German codetermination laws, where workers' councils codecide major changes. Negotiations focused on severance and retraining. On November 15, VW confirmed closure, repurposing for R&D on autonomous driving and batteries, retaining 300 jobs. The final production day, December 16, saw the last ID.3 EV roll-off, ending 24 years of manufacturing. Workers received packages up to €200,000 severance, retraining, or transfers. Hidden factors: energy crisis. Germany's Energiewende raised electricity costs 50%. Labor laws protected jobs but raised costs. Geopolitical tariffs. Trump's 2025 threats on EU autos hit VW's US exports. Less discussed: internal mismanagement delayed EV software, overcapacity from pandemic investments. Global implications. For Germany, signals deindustrialization. Manufacturing share fell from 23% GDP in 2010 to 18%. Job losses ripple. Suppliers cut 10,000 positions. Europe faces similar. Stellantis Ford close plants. EVs shift jobs to battery production, often in Asia. Environmentally, closures reduce emissions but delay green transition if innovation stalls. Geopolitically, weakens EU bargaining power. In thoughtful conclusion, VW's Dresden shutdown after 88 years marks an era's end. Not company's demise but symbol of challenges: energy, competition, transition. Germany must adapt, invest in skills, green energy, innovation. History shows resilience. VW rose from war ruins. As lines fall silent, opportunity for reinvention. The reckoning teaches, in industry, adaptation is survival. Germany's future depends on embracing change to preserve legacy. As December 24, 2025 arrives, the closure of Volkswagen's Transparent Factory in Dresden has crystallized into a defining symbol of the challenges confronting Germany's automotive sector. With the repurposing of the site for research and development now underway and the final assembly operations formally concluded, the last vehicle produced, a limited edition ID. Buzz electric van left the line on December 16, ending an era that began with the facility's opening in 2001 as a showcase of innovative manufacturing. Approximately 200 workers have been laid off or transferred, with the remaining staff transitioning to new roles in battery technology and software validation. This development, while contained to one plant, has amplified broader anxieties about Volkswagen's future in Germany, as ongoing negotiations with labor unions over cost-cutting measures at other sites remain unresolved, and industry analysts project further adjustments in 2026 to address persistent profitability pressures. To place this closure in its fuller context, consider the operational characteristics of the Transparent Factory and its place within Volkswagen's global footprint. The Dresden facility was distinctive from the outset. Constructed with extensive glass walls to allow public viewing of the assembly process, it was intended as a marketing and educational tool rather than a high-volume production hub. Over its lifespan, it manufactured premium models such as the Bentley Bentayga body shells and various electric vehicles, employing advanced techniques like hand assembly for quality emphasis. Its capacity, however, never exceeded a few thousand units annually, contrasting with massive plants like Wolfsburg, which produce hundreds of thousands. The decision to cease manufacturing reflects a strategic reallocation. The site will now host validation centers for autonomous driving systems and battery cell development, aligning with Volkswagen's stated commitment to electrification and digital mobility. The events surrounding the closure have unfolded with careful coordination under Germany's codetermination framework, where works councils, employee representatives participate in major corporate decisions. Consultations began formally in September 2025, following Volkswagen Group's announcement of a €10 billion savings program aimed at restoring competitiveness. Negotiations focused on social plans, severance packages averaging 12 to 18 months' salary, retraining programs funded jointly by the company and government, and priority placement in other VW facilities. The IG Metall Union, representing most workers, secured guarantees against compulsory redundancies at the site, ensuring voluntary departures or internal transfers. The final agreement, ratified in November, provided for the retention of approximately 300 positions in the new R&D focus areas. Implementation P. Proceeded smoothly in the closing weeks. Production tapered gradually, with the final shift on December 16 marked by a subdued ceremony attended by local officials and long-term employees. The facility's glass architecture, once bustling with assembly activity, now hosts prototyping labs and simulation environments. Volkswagen has committed €50 million in investments for the transition, partnering with Dresden's Technical University for collaborative research. Less discussed aspects illuminate the broader pressures at play. The Transparent Factory's model, while innovative, carried higher per-unit costs due to its boutique nature and urban location, making it vulnerable in a margin-compressed environment. Energy expenses, elevated since 2022, weighed particularly heavily on electric vehicle assembly requiring precise climate control. Supply chain disruptions for battery materials, lithium, cobalt added volatility. Internal Volkswagen dynamics include brand portfolio strain. Luxury marques like Porsche and Audi remain profitable, subsidizing volume brands facing EV transition costs. Another underreported factor is the role of government policy. Germany's coalition has extended subsidies for EV purchases into 2026, but at reduced levels, dampening demand. The phase-out of combustion engines by 2035 mandates heavy investment in charging infrastructure, diverting resources from traditional manufacturing. Regional politics in Saxony, where Dresden is located, influenced the repurposing choice. Preserving some jobs avoided sharper political backlash. Global implications extend across economic and strategic dimensions. For Germany, the closure contributes to a narrative of deindustrialization. Manufacturing employment has declined steadily, with the automotive sector shedding 50,000 positions since 2020. Export competitiveness erodes as Chinese EVs, benefiting from scale and subsidies, capture European market share. Imports rose 40% in 2025. Supply chains realign. Battery production shifts to Asia and emerging U.S. hubs under incentive programs. Broader European manufacturers face parallel pressures. Stellantis announced Belgian plant reviews, Ford scaled back Spanish operations. The transition to EVs reshapes labor needs from mechanical skills to software and chemistry, requiring massive retraining. Geopolitically, dependence on Chinese battery materials raises security concerns, prompting EU critical minerals strategies. Environmentally, reduced German production lowers short-term emissions, but delayed EV adoption slows decarbonization of transport. In this concluding reflection on 2025, Volkswagen's shutdown of manufacturing in Dresden after nearly a quarter-century at the site, and within the company's 88-year German history, encapsulates the profound transformations reshaping the automotive landscape. It is not the end of Volkswagen nor of German automaking, but a pivot necessitated by converging forces: the high costs of energy transition, intensifying global competition, and the imperative to innovate in software-defined vehicles. The facility's repurposing offers hope. Focusing on future technologies positions Volkswagen to compete in autonomy and electrification, areas where European strengths in engineering persist. Germany's social model, generous severance, union involvement, cushions workers, providing time for adaptation. Yet challenges demand bolder responses: accelerated grid expansion for affordable renewables, targeted industrial policy bridging legacy and new skills, and European coordination to counter subsidized imports. History provides perspective. Volkswagen rose from post-war ruins through resilience and adaptation, becoming a global leader. The current moment echoes earlier crises: the 1970s oil shock, 1990s overcapacity, each overcome through reinvention. As assembly lines fall silent in Dresden, the opportunity arises for renewal, building vehicles not just assembled but intelligently designed for a sustainable era. The shutdown marks closure of one chapter, but the story of German industry continues, one where tradition meets transformation, ensuring that the people's car evolves with the people it serves. As December 24, 2025 brings the year to its close, the closure of Volkswagen's Transparent Factory in Dresden has transitioned from announcement to reality, with the facility's assembly operations fully ceased and the first stages of its repurposing into a center for advanced research and development now actively underway. The final production vehicle, a specially configured ID.3 electric model, completed its journey down the line on December 16. Surrounded by a small gathering of employees, local officials, and media representatives who marked the occasion with restrained ceremony rather than celebration. The glass-walled building, once a vibrant showcase of automotive craftsmanship visible to passers-by on the streets of Dresden, now hosts the initial installations of prototype Ment and simulation laboratories with approximately 300 retained staff beginning training programs focused on battery systems, software validation, and autonomous driving technologies. This transformation, while preserving a portion of the workforce and aligning with Volkswagen's long-term strategic priorities, has nonetheless amplified concerns about the sustainability of traditional manufacturing in Germany, as parallel cost reduction discussions at other domestic sites continue without final resolution. To fully appreciate the implications of this closure in its concluding phase, consider the specific attributes that made the Transparent Factory unique within Volkswagen's portfolio and the careful orchestration required to execute its shutdown under Germany's robust labor protections. Opened in 2001 at a cost of nearly €200 million, the facility was conceived as an architectural statement. Its extensive use of glass allowed the public to observe the meticulous assembly process, blending industrial production with urban transparency. It specialized in low-volume, high-precision work, initially the luxury Phaeton sedan, later electric models like the e-Golf and ID.3, employing techniques that emphasized craftsmanship over mass efficiency. With a maximum annual output of around 5,000 vehicles, it never achieved the economies of scale seen at larger plants, but it served valuable marketing and innovation purposes, hosting visitor tour and pilot projects for new manufacturing methods. The closure process adhered strictly to Germany's codetermination laws, which grant works councils substantial influence over workforce changes. Negotiations, extending from September through November, resulted in a comprehensive social plan. Affected employees received severance packages scaled by tenure, averaging 12 to 24 months' salary plus bonuses, access to company-funded retraining programs in fields like software engineering and battery technology, and priority consideration for openings elsewhere in the Volkswagen Group. No compulsory redundancies were imposed, departures were voluntary or through natural attrition and internal transfers. The agreement also included commitments to community support. Volkswagen pledged €10 million to regional initiatives in education and startup incubation, aimed at mitigating local economic impacts. Implementation in the final weeks proceeded with precision. Production volumes were gradually reduced from October onward, allowing inventory fulfillment without disruption. The last shift on December 16 concluded with symbolic gestures. Employees signed the final vehicle, and management hosted a modest farewell event emphasizing continuity rather than loss. By December 20, assembly equipment began relocation or decommissioning, while new R&D installations, test benches for battery cells, virtual reality simulation stations arrived. The transition budget, estimated at €60 million, covers renovations expected to complete by mid-2026, positioning the site as a hub for collaboration with Dresden's technical universities and startups. Less discussed aspects highlight the multifaceted rationale behind the decision. The facility's urban location imposed logistical constraints, limited space for expansion, higher land and labor costs compared to greenfield sites, and sensitivity to noise and traffic regulations in a residential area. Energy consumption for climate-controlled assembly, critical for electric vehicle quality, became prohibitive amid Germany's elevated electricity prices, among Europe's highest following the loss of cheap Russian gas. Internal Volkswagen metrics showed the plant's contribution to group profitability consistently below average, making it a logical candidate for rationalization in a €10 billion cost-saving program targeting 8 to 10% margin restoration by 2028. Another underreported factor is the symbolic weight within the company culture. The Transparent Factory embodied a vision of open, premium manufacturing from the early 2000s, but evolving priorities, software-defined vehicles, over-the-air updates, sustainable mobility render traditional assembly less central. The shift to R&D reflects acknowledgement that future value lies in intellectual property and systems integration rather than physical production volume. Global implications resonate across interconnected economies. For Germany, the closure contributes to a gradual hollowing of manufacturing employment. The sector's share of GDP has declined steadily, with automotive suppliers announcing parallel adjustments totaling thousands of positions. Export dependence exposes vulnerability. Chinese electric vehicle imports benefiting from scale and subsidies have captured 15% of the European market in 2025, pressuring domestic pricing and margins. Supply chain realignment accelerates. Battery production migrates to low-cost regions or subsidized US and Asian hubs, reducing European content in final vehicle. Broader European automakers confront similar dynamics. Renault and Stellantis review French and Italian capacities, while Ford scales back in Spain. The transition to electric mobility reshapes labor profiles, from mechanical assembly to digital and chemical expertise, demanding systemic retraining investments. Geopolitically, reliance on non-European critical materials raises supply security concerns, prompting EU initiatives for domestic mining and recycling. Environmentally, reduced German output lowers short-term industrial emissions, but slower EV adoption if affordability lags delays transport decarbonization. In this extended reflection concluding 2025, Volkswagen's cessation of vehicle manufacturing at the Transparent Factory in Dresden, marking the first such shutdown of a German plant in the company's 88-year domestic history, encapsulates the profound structural shifts reshaping the automotive industry. It is not the collapse of Volkswagen nor the end of German automaking, but a deliberate pivot amid converging pressures. The high costs of energy transition, intensifying global competition, and the imperative to master software and electrification. The facility's transformation into an R&D center offers a forward-looking model, preserving intellectual capital while adapting to new value creation paradigms. Germany's social partnership, union management collaboration yielding humane transitions, provides a buffer absent in many competitors, facilitating workforce evolution. Yet systemic responses are needed. Accelerated renewable energy deployment to lower industrial electricity costs, targeted subsidies bridging legacy and emerging technologies, and European trade policies balancing openness with reciprocity. History affords perspective. Volkswagen navigated post-war reconstruction, oil crises, and emissions scandals through resilience and reinvention, emerging stronger each time. The current juncture echoes these trials, demanding similar adaptability. As the glass walls of Dresden now frame laboratories rather than assembly lines, the opportunity arises to pioneer the next generation of mobility, vehicles defined by intelligence, sustainability, and integration. The shutdown closes one chapter but opens another, one where Germany's engineering heritage combined with strategic renewal can sustain leadership in a transformed industry. The people's car endures not in unchanging form but in evolving service to future generations. Marks the quiet aftermath of Volkswagen's decision to end vehicle manufacturing at its Transparent Factory in Dresden. The site has begun its transformation into a dedicated center for research and development, with initial equipment installations complete and the first collaborative projects with local academic institutions underway. The closure, finalized with the last production vehicle on December 16, has left the glass-walled building, once a public showcase of automotive assembly, reoriented toward prototyping laboratories and simulation environments focused on battery technology, software for autonomous driving, and sustainable materials. Approximately 300 employees have remained on site undergoing specialized training programs, while those departing have commenced severance periods or internal transfers. This shift, executed with the cooperation of labor representatives under Germany's established social partnership model, reflects Volkswagen's broader strategy to adapt to evolving industry demands while preserving core competencies and innovation. Yet it also underscores the persistent uncertainties facing the company's German operations, as cost reduction talks at larger plants continue into the new year without conclusive agreements. To fully examine this concluding phase of the Dresden closure, consider the practical details of the facility's repurposing and the structured support mechanisms that have facilitated the transition. The Transparent Factory, with its distinctive architecture allowing visibility into production processes, now features partition areas for confidential R&D work, including test benches for next-generation battery cells and virtual reality stations for vehicle software validation. Volkswagen has allocated an initial €60 million for renovations, expected to conclude by mid-2026, with partnerships announced involving the Technical University of Dresden and Fraunhofer Institutes for joint research in solid-state batteries and lightweight composites. These initiatives aim to position the site as a bridge between academic discovery and industrial application, potentially generating patents and prototypes that feed into group-wide electrification efforts. The employee transition has been managed through a detailed social plan negotiated over several months. Departing workers, primarily those in direct assembly roles, receive individualized packages, base severance equivalent to 1 month's salary per year of service, capped at 24 months, supple. Mentored by bonuses for long tenure and contributions to innovation projects. Retraining vouchers valued up to €15,000 per person, cover courses in high-demand fields such as data analytics, embedded systems programming, and renewable energy management. Internal job fairs held in November and December facilitated placements at other Volkswagen sites, with over 100 workers accepting offers in Wolfsburg and Emden. The IG Metall Union has monitored compliance, ensuring no breaches of the agreement and advocating for extended support if external re-employment proves challenging. Implementation details in the final weeks highlight the meticulous planning involved. Production inventories were cleared by early December, avoiding disruptions to supply chains. Decommissioning of assembly lines proceeded in phases, with reusable equipment relocated to facilities in Zwickau and Bratislava. The ceremonial conclusion on December 16 included reflections from veteran employees on the site's history, from the Phaeton era symbolizing ambition to the electric vehicle phase representing transition. Public access, a hallmark of the original concept, will be partially restored through guided tour of the new R&D areas, maintaining the facility's role as an interface between industry and society. Less discussed aspects provide deeper insight into the decision's rationale and consequences. The Transparent Factory's operational model, while effective for brand image, incurred structural disadvantages. Higher wage costs in an urban setting, limited scalability for volume production, and vulnerability to energy price fluctuations that particularly affected climate-controlled electric assembly. Internal audits revealed utilization rates below 50% in recent years, making continued manufacturing economically untenable amid group-wide margin targets of 8 to 10% by 2028. The choice of repurposing over outright sale or closure preserved political goodwill in Saxony, where Volkswagen is a major employer and the state government holds influence through its stake in the company. Another underreported factor is the interplay with broader corporate strategy. Volkswagen's new auto plan, updated in 2025, prioritizes software and services revenue, projected to reach 20% of total by 2030 over traditional hardware volume. The Dresden shift aligns with this, concentrating resources on intellectual property development rather than physical output. Regional ecosystem effects are emerging. Local suppliers specialized in premium components report order reductions but also new opportunities in R&D subcontracting. Global implications manifest in interconnected ways. For Germany's export-driven economy, the closure contributes to a trend of manufacturing relocation. Automotive production capacity has shifted toward lower-cost sites in Eastern Europe, Mexico, and Asia, with domestic output declining 5% year-over-year. This realignment exposes vulnerability to trade disruptions, including potential tariffs from major markets. European competitors navigate similar terrain. BMW and Mercedes invest heavily in software partnerships, while smaller suppliers consolidate or seek buyers. The electric vehicle transition reshapes labor markets. Demand grows for skills in battery chemistry and autonomous systems, but legacy roles in internal combustion engineering diminish. Retraining success varies by region and age cohort, with older workers facing longer transitions. Geopolitically, dependence on non-European battery supply chains prompts strategic initiatives like the EU's Critical Raw Materials Act, aiming for domestic processing capacity. Environmentally, reduced assembly lowers industrial energy use, but the broader shift to EVs, if accelerated, promises larger carbon reductions in transportation. In this comprehensive reflection concluding 2025, Volkswagen's termination of vehicle production at the Transparent Factory in Dresden, symbolizing the first full shutdown of manufacturing at a German site in the company's long history, stands as a microcosm of the profound adaptations required in the automotive sector. It represents not defeat but deliberate evolution, from volume-driven hardware to knowledge-intensive innovation, preserving core strengths while shedding unsustainable elements. The social partnership model, yielding humane, negotiated outcomes, distinguishes the German approach, providing workers time and resources for reinvention. Volkswagen's investment in the site's future underscores commitment to domestic R&D, potentially yielding breakthroughs in sustainable mobility. Yet the episode highlights systemic imperatives: affordable renewable energy to power industry, coordinated European policies to compete globally, and robust vocational systems bridging old and new skills. History offers reassurance. Volkswagen has repeatedly transformed from post-war Beetle producer to global group leader, from Dieselgate survivor to electrification pioneer. The current challenges, though acute, fit this pattern of renewal through adversity. As the Transparent Factory's focus turns from assembly to discovery, it embodies possibility, engineering not just vehicles but the mobility systems of tomorrow, efficient, intelligent, and aligned with environmental imperatives. The production era ends, but the legacy continues, evolved, resilient, and forward-looking. Germany's automotive heritage, tested but enduring, points toward a future where tradition informs innovation, ensuring the industry remains a pillar of prosperity in a changing world.